let's call the meeting to order. This is the May 14th, 2013 meeting of the Steamship Authority Board members. Our first item this morning is the minutes, approval of the minutes for the April 16th, 2013 meeting.
Approval. Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Our second item is the general manager's report.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. First is the business summary for the month of March. The total number of passengers carried in March was up 0.2% compared to the same period last year. Total number of automobiles carried was up 0.4% from the previous year. And the total number of trucks carried was off 2.5% from March 2012. Our operating revenues and other income in March were up $268,000 compared to our original budget projections. Our operating expenses and fixed charges for the month were up $73,000 versus our budget estimate. The authority's net operating loss in March was $3,158,000, which was $16,000 higher than the amount that we had projected in the operating budget. So it was the revenue and the income was up $57,000, not $268,000. But the operating expenses and fixed charges were up $73,000, so that's the net of the $16,000. The operating loss being $16,000 higher. For the first 3 months of 2013, the total number of passengers carried was off 4.7% versus the previous year. The total number of automobiles carried was off 3.5%, and the total number of trucks carried was off 1.3%. The authority's operating revenues and other income for the first 3 months of 2013 were $143,000 lower than what our budget projections were. Our operating expenses and fixed charges were $315,000 lower than our budget projections. So the authority's net operating loss for the first 3 months amounts to $9,941,000. And that is $172,000 lower than the amount that was projected in our operating budget. So we're running a little bit ahead of where we expected to be after 3 months. And those are basically the highlights for the business summary. Any questions? Hearing none, we have update on the website redesign project. For the last several months, I've been reporting that we expected to be in a position to launch a new website as soon as we can successfully pass a few remaining tests. First, it was our internal testing for compliance with the requirements of our credit card processor. IMARC was able to work through some vulnerabilities that were identified in the initial testing. So although IMARC was able to eventually pass our internal compliance tests, the new website will be subject to additional external compliance testing by the bank prior to the actual launch. The remaining issue that we have been dealing with for the past month is the unsatisfactory results of the so-called load tests that we've been running to ensure that the new website can handle the volume of customers that are expected to visit it. The results from these load tests continue to be disappointing, to say the least. IMARC has actually created new problems with the site while trying to improve the overall efficiency and reduce the number of queries that they use in completing a reservation transaction. So to date, IMARC has been unable to deliver a website that is capable of meeting our basic requirements. At this point, of course, we expected to have the site fully launched well before now. But at this point, we are reassessing all of the possible options that are available to us. And I hope to be in a better position next month, have to be able to make a more informed recommendation to the board about what our next step should be. There's several options available to us, and we're going to assess those various options and come back with a recommendation. But at least for this summer, it doesn't appear that we're going to be able to launch the new website. For the second year in a row. We've been at this for 2 years now, and it's very disappointing. The team has worked, our team has worked very hard, put a lot of time into this, and over the last 2 years, and so they still have a lot of work to do. And the question of how long is it going to take, who's going to pay for it, whether there are any other options that we could pursue.
Yes, sir.
How much have we spent so far?
About 350,000, 360,000.
No.
43,000. We're up to overall, what we're withholding, it's about 360,000 in services.
Including what you haven't paid?
What we have, which is about 17,000 that we're withholding. It's about 5% of what has been billed. We have also upgraded our servers, and we have spent $200,000 on that. We have had to involve our own software consultants that we have, as well as programmers we have on staff.
Would we have upgraded our servers anyway?
No, not at this time. As part of this, a month or so ago, we had to bring the servers up to a more recent version. And IMARC required that because they suspected that that was causing some of these problems that we were experiencing. But when we got done doing all that, and that set us back about 2 or 3 weeks, it didn't change the results in the end. One of the options is throwing more hardware at it and increasing the capacity of the CPU. But it could add another $300,000 or $400,000 to the cost, and I'm not there as far as trying to bail this project out by. They should be able to do it with the current CPU, just like the current site works and is able to. Right now, we can process up to 150 reservations a minute when we go online at the first of the year, and we open up for online reservations. Our system is handling approximately 150 transactions per minute on our current site. And with this new site, we're stressing out the CPU with only 50 transactions. So it's we've got a long way to go to figure out what's causing, what are the difference between the two approaches, and how can we get the new site to behave in the background like the current site does. All the front end stuff is nice. That's all nice, new, improved, and that works well. But in terms of somebody being able to make a reservation or to cancel a reservation, get a refund, all of those things have to be working correctly before I'm willing to say, okay, let's go.
Yes, sir.
Wayne, is it safe to assume that we'll be withholding all future payments?
I think so. I think, at this point, we owe them for the month of April. That bill just came in the other day, but we're going to be having a conversation with them this later. I tried to get it before this meeting, but they were not available yesterday. And we have to make sure they understand the priority of this.
Somewhat surprising they wouldn't be available in these conditions.
It is to us as well.
Question number 2. Given that the summer is now behind us, what would be the next target date, January 1?
It would be in the fall, sometime before we
Next
open up.
Open reservation time.
They're instead of weeks, they're looking at months of having to go back and reprogram and look at the whole process of how somebody makes a reservation.
So even that's in danger, the fall date.
So we're looking at towards the end of the summer, June, July, August, probably in that time frame, 3 months.
Wow.
And so in September, we'd have to decide when, at that point.
in my uneducated opinion, it's almost time to fish hook up bait, I would think.
That would be part of the discussion that we have with IMARC.
Yes, sir.
What are the other options that you have?
One is to go back to IMARC and see what they propose to bring it up to meet our requirements, and how much will that cost, how long will it take, and who's going to pay for that. Adding the hardware would be another possible solution, which would allow them to keep the way the system is working now, the program is working now, but just throwing more hardware at it so that the end user doesn't see a problem with the system. So any changes we make down the road are going to be complicated and drawn out because there isn't a clean, it doesn't seem to be a clean path through the whole process. The other thing would be to talk to them about a combination of the two. If we take their front end, what they've developed for the front end, and are able to combine that with what we're doing now on the back end with the reservation system, so we keep the efficiency we have with the current online reservation system, but we improve the appearance of the front end. That may be something that we can talk to them about doing. And then the other is cutting and going from there, cutting our losses and stopping this, and that they haven't performed under their contract.
Which is another story.
Which I'll be bringing whatever the recommendation is to the next meeting. And some of it may require a subject for executive session.
Yes.
Are there firms out there that could come in here and take this over quickly and hopefully fix it?
I don't think so, because this code has all been written by basically one person, one programmer. So for someone else to come in and pick it up now, or even for us to come back, if we were to get all of this code and be able to use all the images and everything that's been developed, our programmer would have to go through and first try to figure out what the code, what it's doing, and why it's doing what it's doing in order to then modify it. So it could be difficult for someone else to come in. It's a little different than a building, putting up a building and having
Right.
somebody else come in and finish it for you.
Are you saying that all it could be lost? Everything that's been done could be lost?
No, that we own what's been developed under our contract. Steve's going to look at this further, but the code and all of that we've paid for belongs to us.
Gonna figure out.
So we'll get that, but it would be better if we had their help in working together and trying to see if there's a way that we could, like I say, merge the good parts of both websites, the current site versus the new website.
Go ahead.
Are they embarrassed? I mean, do they accept responsibility for this?
Not outright, but they're still working. They're still working to solve the problem, and they feel that they'll eventually be able to solve it. But I'm not sure that we should be continuing to pay to correct their mistakes.
As it gets closer to litigation, it's the other guy.
And we have hardware that they can't see what's going on within that box. So it's we can't give them reports that show why there's so much stress that's being put on the system all of a sudden. Stress that our reservation system doesn't have. Our online reservation process doesn't have that kind of stress, put that kind of stress on the CPU.
Who developed the system we use now?
Well, it's our internal programmer, Kurt Van Riper, who's on our payroll, and he's been involved in all this.
And he designed it?
He sat down with me at the very beginning to explain the process that we use. But There's something like 20 queries that he makes in the process of completing a reservation transaction. IMARC has identified 500 to 600 queries that they make in the process of making a reservation. So when they wonder why the stress on the system,
Right.
that's one indication of what some of the underlying problems are.
But it can't be the complexity of our rate schedules and the variations of our
Because we're
trucks
already
and
doing
cars
it.
and all that, because you're already doing
We're
it.
already doing it. So it's been very frustrating because we got so close and then we started running these compliance tests and the load tests, and that's when all of this came up.
I agree not putting it online until it's perfect, to be very honest with you, but I don't see an end to this. It's just,
We'd run the load tests and then we'd get calls from the terminals from people that say all of a sudden I can't print a ticket. I can't look up a reservation. The whole reservation system is tied up.
overloads.
Because it's reached its capacity. We have equipment that tries to balance things out and all of that, but so you can't continue to have an operation like that. You can't put our employees and our customers through that to get through the summer.
Right.
We're not making 150 reservations per minute online in the summer, but when we open up in January, we are. But even with 50 reservations a minute, we're running, it's too much for the current hardware to handle. Mary, you got anything to add?
It's been very, very difficult. The team that we work with of, Mark, Kimberly, and Gina gained the most from the front end, which has been excellent for quite some time now. We work with Kurt, as Wayne mentioned, and Kelly back at the offices, and the team has been going. We meet a few times a week. We have conference calls. We keep going, and yet Wayne was very firm on the dates that we had to meet due to the volume that will be coming at us starting in May. And it's just so disappointing. It's almost overwhelmingly disappointing because, we can see that they continue to meet with Kurt, they continue to make improvements, and as we continue to get there, it's not where we need to be. And the dates and the months on the calendar just seem to keep going. And we've been very aggressive with them in terms of letting them know what we were hoping to do. We fall back to the objective, which was to attract more customers, and obviously we would like to do that clearly now. So it's just very disappointing, and it's unfortunate because it doesn't show the effort that's been put in by our team, and we provide them an abundant amount of information at times, more than once, at times in a repetitive fashion to remind them, and we provide them what we can, and we've given them so many tools and so many pieces of assistance. It's just overwhelming that we're not where we should be.
One more question. Is it too simplistic to ask, is it either too complicated a software program or totally under capacity on the hardware side? Is it one of those things or the other?
No, to separate things out, we are complicated. I think we all acknowledge that. We're very complicated. But it's been done before. Many people have done it successfully before. This is not something that just one person was successful with. We've automated these things successfully many times.
Then, Mary, is it just that our hardware isn't sufficient?
Well, the other thing
with all that money we've spent?
With all that money we've spent, the thing that is interesting is that the hardware discussion that Wayne had about increasing and providing them, there are many times that, providing hardware will solve your problem because you suddenly give them a larger ceiling. The ceiling of where they were going changes. And to keep it in perspective, we have not had to do that for any of the other functions or processes that we have on the system now. When they were added in, these things were taken into account. When you ask someone how long it's going to take to get somewhere, they can give you any answer they want, but if they don't have a vehicle that accomplishes the task, they'll fail. So it's one of these things that, the hardware discussion is an improvement that we think may assist, but there is still the possibility that due to their own logic, that may not accomplish the goal we're anticipating.
Yes, sir.
Mary, do you feel that they're putting in the same effort that our people are? Do they have enough people working on this problem?
The people that we speak to has been, as Wayne mentioned, the one person who's been doing a majority of the programming and the program manager. And we meet with them, and it's hard to say. We would like to hope so. When we speak with them, they seem to have, good answers, but the problems are that the timelines are never where we would hope they would be. Wayne asks,
How often do they meet with you?
Pardon me?
How often do they meet with you?
Kurt and I probably speak with them daily, and we
Speak
meet
with them, Dave.
daily by telephone, and then we have a conference call at least once a week with more than just Kurt and I.
Where are they?
Very important.
Newberry.
So most of our work is done on teleconference calls, telephone. But I don't think it's a hardware issue because we're able to do everything on our
Right.
current site
Yeah.
with the current hardware.
Sounds like they're over I mean, it just sounds like they're totally incapable of pulling this kind of a project together. They misrepresented their capability.
My concern is solving it with another $300,000
Wow.
fix that we don't know if that's gonna correct it.
Right.
Or if we give them another 3 months to work on this and reprogram things within their new website.
Where are we gonna be
whether
then?
that's gonna
Exactly.
work as well.
We would trust them with another thing.
So, so moving on to better news.
Almost anything.
The repairs to the Oak Bluffs dock, Carl, do you want to update the members on that?
Sure. Thank you, Wayne. Oak Bluffs is complete. A couple of punch list items for the contractor. The state building inspector went out yesterday and approved the installation. He has a couple of punch list items he wants us to work on also, but he is sending us a temporary occupancy permit for the pier today, this morning. Talked to Bridget, she did a walkthrough and is happy with everything out there. The punch list items are a section of railing or two didn't come in, and there's wooden stanchions and plywood out there. It's painted white. It's not pretty, but it works, and the pier's going to be open on time. We're missing a light pole that got knocked off in the storm. That was a special order from Germany that we're still waiting for that. It won't affect our operation right now. Some adjustments here and there. We have a little bit of work on the transfer bridge. We have to change the transfer bridge winch motor out. We've done that, and just fixing some of the counterweight guides and things that got damaged in the storm. But the gentleman that's on the gate head right now doing the welding, as soon as he's done, we'll be heading to Oak Bluffs to do that welding. We're a little thin trying to get the island home and the governor out and get Oak Bluffs going and everything else at this point. So we're very happy with MIG. MIG did a great job. The contractor was out there. They stayed on it. They worked long shifts, double shifts, weekends when they needed to. They had some issues with materials, supplies, especially the wood. With Hurricane Sandy, wood was in demand along the East Coast with all the piers that were broken and everything. So that held them up a few times, but overall, we're very happy with their progress. They understand there's a couple punch list items, and they'll get on those as soon as they arrive, and we can work that out with them. I don't know if there's any other questions on Oak Bluffs. Is the weather main up? Did anyone notice? I haven't even thought to call Anthony.
I didn't notice that, no. I saw the dock, I saw the pier one, went by yesterday, and everything's cleaned up and ready to go.
He's usually pretty
It's
good,
great.
but I'll make a note to call
It's
him.
great, this was a tight deadline, and they did a great job.
I think they did. It was a tight deadline. It was very tight. I think we probably didn't get some bids, or we got high bids or no bid because of the timeline. They were aggressive. They had confidence in themselves from the beginning. And, it's never easy to work in the winter out at Oak Bluffs. It's never easy,
Or the sun.
Just watching the welders out there a couple days where the rollers were coming right under their feet, they're out there welding and we had water, we had some swells this winter where we had to stop and pull the guys out, up, or they would have been drenched down there. But they did a good job, and I would definitely like to see them bid more work in the future.
They had to pull their barge in and out of the harbor quite a few times.
Yes, as I said,
Yep.
not a good place to work.
No, they couldn't leave the barge there.
Do they work on white sites?
I don't know about that.
Ask them.
Yes, sir.
The project itself, just over, estimating right now, just over $2 million, but notice from the Massachusetts Emergency Management, they forwarded a FEMA form along, so just over $1 million of it would be to replace the damage in like kind. That's going to be reimbursable at 75%. And then they have the schedule here has another $634,000 in mitigation, which would be payable at 100%. So
$1,400,000, total of $1,600,000.
$1,600,000 in cost, less $250,000 for the our share. So $1,400,000 will be reimbursed.
Excellent.
Bob, are they committed to the mitigation? Is that what that form is for? Great.
Is there room on that pier for a small cruise ship?
Deep sigh, sorry. The only place a small cruise ship could go is probably where the high speed is on that side, and with their barge, we'd have to look at that and work with them, but that's the only place I could see. Coming inside on the other side of the pier, it's shallow over there, so I couldn't imagine anyone trying to land on that side of the pier.
Those small cruise ships are not going into Packard's Dock this year. They're going to be anchoring outside of Eggertown Harbor and being transported back and forth, and I think they're looking for a better spot.
We could work with Wayne to look at that.
I agree with Carl, where the place would be along the side there, that where the
We're already utilizing.
where the barge is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is update on the Hyannis Harbor Channel dredging. The Army Corps of Engineers still needs to receive approvals from several state agencies, including the Department of Environmental Protection, the Division of Marine Fisheries, and Coastal Zone Management. In addition, there are also several environmental agencies on the federal level that still need to weigh in and provide comments to the Army Corps of Engineers on the project. So that work is still ongoing. At this point, we are still hopeful that the Corps of Engineers will have everything in place to proceed with the dredging on or about June 21st. Congressman Keating's office has been very involved in this, as well as State Representative Tim Madden's office.
How much of a window is there with the Currituck?
There's,
In other words, if this thing keeps going on and on, we don't get the approvals, how late can the Currituck stay there?
I'm not sure what their schedule is after Hyannis. I know there's a couple projects lined up before, and we're trying to see if we can move up a little bit, but they've got a job up on the South Shore, Massachusetts, south of Boston. They have Cuttyhunk and Block Island. They've got dredging projects lined up for there.
I think I heard them say that if they didn't get it done, they had to come back, and they could come back in October.
We're hoping and we're pushing,
Right.
we're hoping and pushing to get everything done as soon as possible, so.
Yes.
But this is a Band-Aid, right? This is not fixing the problem, it's just making it so it's
Not
passable.
completely, it's taking out those areas, those high spots that we're now are causing trouble.
So is it up to the town of Barnstable, is it up to us? I mean, somewhere along the line, we have to address this so we don't go through this every spring.
Well, we'll be working with the Corps of Engineers and the Congressman's office to identify a funding source and get it in the budget, get appropriated funds to do regular maintenance on the channel.
When was the last time it was dredged?
When it was improved back in, I think, 95,
99.
96.
Something like that, 98.
So normally you do maintenance dredging, maybe, depending on the condition, but every 10 years.
Has it had maintenance dredging in between that time?
No.
No, okay.
Just,
Yes, sir.
if I may just add to that, you asked responsibility, it's a federal channel. So that the government will maintain that, but it needs a local sponsor, which the town of Barnstable has done.
Okay.
But it will need periodic dredging from time to time, and it needs, as the Center Harbor is starting to shoal now too, pretty dramatically, and which would be a combination of the feds. The federal channel goes into about 100 feet off of the Ocean Street bulkhead, and then the rest of it is the town of Barnstable. But they had dredging, shoaling in there now, just reminiscent of about 15 years ago. All of these things are going to have to be periodically maintained and dredged. And we need to make sure that we're in the loop and the schedule for doing that.
And my question was, who makes the federal, or asks the federal government to do their job? So that would be the town of Barnstable.
Yeah, and the Steamship Authority
Steamship,
and the other
okay.
users, any users within the harbor.
Okay.
The High Line and some of the deep drafted fishing boats and things like that. So everybody has a piece in the action here.
As well as Nantucket, island in Nantucket, so it depends on it so much. So that's all I have to report on that at this time. Next, vessel sewage pump out project, Carl, you have that one?
Sure, thank you.
Coming along pretty good.
It is coming along pretty good. We've got a couple of final adjustments, but the 4 sites have been tested and are operating. We've got an issue here in Hyannis that we're dealing with on one of the PLCs. We think that's going to be replaced. The contractor's coming back next week to replace that. We've got an upgrade to all of them now that we've learned the parameters of our operation a little better. So we're going to do tweaking on all 4 units next week. I believe it's Wednesday he's coming out, and I'll be working with him on that. The 4 boats, the Island Home, the Eagle, the Katama, the Sankety, are now switched over to holding tanks, and we will be pumping those. We are pumping some in the Island Home, and will be coming online soon in the Sankety again. So it's working. It's got some bugs here and there, but we're definitely going to be able to work them out with the contractor. They seem to be a very good contractor, very proactive. They always come up with a solution if we have an issue. Some of it's our own internal, how we do things, and control stations and pits, and who's going to do the work and who's not going to do the work. And we're working with Phil on those issues about the pumping out, and who's going to handle all the hoses and things. And we've got to do some internal things. We've set up preventive maintenance work orders in our Maximo system for the equipment in the pits. It's not trouble-free. There's oil tanks that have to be filled for lubrication. There's drain tanks that have to be cleaned out once in a while, that type of thing. But the maintenance department will handle that, and we'll get all that set up and any final training. And I hope sometime by the end of next week, we've got all the bugs worked out and training, and this is just a routine operation at that point. Has any questions?
Yeah, the vessels will be completed in the fall or next spring after the vessel completes, like the Hyannis is due for dry dock next spring. So right after the first of the year, we should have, from then on, all of our vessels should be complying and pumping out. We won't be using the MSD systems, the marine sanitation device on any of the vessels after that date.
We're well ahead of the deadline, aren't we?
A little bit, about a year before, ahead of.
Wonderful.
Next is the update on the Palmer Avenue parking lot improvements. It's another project that Carl has been overseeing.
Thank you, Wayne. The project's going well. We're on schedule. If you've been by there, it's quite a change from what it was before without the ice arena and a lot of the vegetation, but we're gonna be putting some of that back. And most of the vegetation changes will be done in the fall, actually with Phase 2. But along the bike path in that area, that'll all be screened for this summer there. So the base coat is down on about 90% of the lot now. The drainage is in, being finalized, just covering it up with the materials, the loam, and seating. Electrical conduits are all pulled to all of the light poles, the booths. The islands, we finalized the conduit locations yesterday. They will be pouring the concrete for the islands, for the booths today, and hopefully we'll be setting the booths tomorrow. And then it's a mad dash at that point for Mark's, the gate people, the communications people, and my people to wire the booths and get all that, and try to get everyone in one spot at the same time. But we'll get that done. The top coat of the asphalt for skating lane and where the ice arena used to be, I believe, we talked about Thursday or Friday that will be done, and that will allow them then to go in and start doing some of the line striping and directional coatings. The sign has been ordered, it's being developed, and that should be put up on Monday for the new parking lot. Lawrence Lynch is doing a great job, and I have to say their subs are doing a very, very good job. The electrical people, the landscaping people, and a lot of cooperation between Mary's department and Mark McNeely and the Magana, what is it? Yeah, the traffic people, everyone's worked well together. We found some headaches during the project and conduits that weren't there, but everyone figured it out before pavement and before concrete. But we should be on schedule or possibly a little ahead of schedule for the opening of that lot.
A couple of questions. How did the drainage work the other day with all that rain?
Great.
No problems?
Great.
Okay.
No problem at all. Everything ran with the slopes to where it was supposed to go, and it functioned properly. I mean, we got some rain. We didn't get the 5-inch rain, that we're really worried about. But
Right.
the system will handle that. It's designed and permitted to handle that 5-inch rainstorm that we didn't have before. Now, if it does get to that point and our bioretention system is overloaded, it will actually overflow and go into the road runoff basin for Route 28. That's right behind the mobile station. That's designed and permitted to be able to do that when we get to that point.
And where's the signage you speak of is just at that entrance, that this is the new entrance to Palmer?
It's actually exactly where the ice arena sign used to be.
Okay.
We're using the same supports in the ground. It's about the same size as the ice arena sign was and about the same height because we have to keep it a little higher so that if a car is coming out and taking a left like a Suburban, it's not going to be blocking the sign for people coming down 28. I think we've got a good design and a good spot for it.
Are the buses going to continue going in that, like where the buses go for the Falmouth terminal?
Yes, actually, Mark can talk on the operation.
Yes, to answer your question, yes.
Not the Falmouth terminal, no.
Where
Right next to the Elks.
Peter Pan goes is what I'm saying,
No.
that same road.
The buses are gonna go in that way and then come out on the,
Yes.
And where are they gonna come out?
Where they currently do now, right, on the current bus exit right now.
Are we gonna gain any more parking in that area since it won't be an entrance and egress for regular traffic?
That's in phase 2.
Okay.
not near the street, though.
No.
We're not gonna be parking any closer to the street than what we are now.
Yes, sir.
Jim, a couple things. First of all, I assume Jerry's out of the picture and Chris is running the show, and compliments to him. They have done a great job.
Not on site, but
Yeah.
in the big picture, he
Right.
is.
It
Craig
looks-
Tomley is actually our project manager.
It looks terrific. It looks great. Are we doing anything with signage other than on our actual premises? Are we doing anything with approach signage as we come down from the bridge? And where and what, and what's it gonna say?
Well, we've got the variable message sign that's up on 28, and then as you get closer, get through the traffic light at the hospital, we've had a sign there saying that the entrance is so many feet ahead.
Mhm.
And so we're replacing that with, because we're moving the entrance with a new sign. So that gives people an idea that the
Mhm.
entrance is coming up, in addition to the sign that
It's
we
gonna
have.
give them any more time, or pretty much in the same location?
Pretty much in the same location as where the old sign was.
Okay,
And on the variable message sign, there are concerns that people may not know the new entrance, so we'll try to modify that to show that new entrance, to call that attention to that, at least
What
initially.
about the sign that says Woods Hole lot closed, park here? Are we doing anything with that?
That will continue, those will continue to be used. Lot open, lot closed.
Okay. Is there any way that we could make the Woods Hole lot closed statement more emphatic? Because there are still too many people that say, well, I'll give it a shot, and drive into Woods Hole. I mean, how can we reinforce that message?
Well, we do it with, through the mobile site that we have, showing directions, giving directions to people that are looking for the lot, that at any time, whatever lot we're using will be shown on the mobile site, and people will be able to get directions to that lot.
Well, I wish somebody would be more clever than me and figure out a way to
We have the
Maybe
radio.
shut that down.
We have
Instead
the
of saying
radio.
lot closed, maybe we just should say no parking in Woods Hole.
Yeah, I mean,
Because as soon as you say lot, someone's gonna say, I'll try it.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's
And
exactly what happens.
if we basically say that there's no parking in Woods Hole, then maybe they'll believe us.
I think that's a
don't know.
great idea. No parking in Woods Hole. When the lot is closed, tell them, no parking in Woods Hole.
Yeah, well, the lot's always closed in theory
I know.
to, except for,
Right,
except for a few people.
yeah.
But if you just said no parking in Woods Hole, that might convey it a little better.
Well, that might help.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is update on the feasibility study for the Woods Hole Terminal Reconstruction Project. And I handed out the schedule for the feasibility study. We held a kickoff meeting last week in Woods Hole with the architects, Berto and Iwork architects, they're from Boston. They've been retained to complete a feasibility study for this project. Mark Hanover and Bob Marshall also attended the kickoff meeting. I have distributed the schedule, as I say, and this preliminary phase of the project will involve the development of alternative design solutions and eventually a consensus solution, including possible relocation of the authority's general offices away from the Woods Hole Terminal, a possible reconfiguration of the terminal's 3 ferry slips, a new terminal building, and the need to look at improving the pedestrian and vehicle movements on the current site. The study must also consider the negative consequences of a flooding event since the terminal is located in a flood zone. The feasibility study is expected to take 9 to 12 months, including special studies that may be needed prior to developing any alternative plans or concepts. I think that schedule lays out a period of 9 months, but there may be some additional studies that are required that would push some of those timelines out a little further. So we're probably looking at maybe closer to 12 months to finish this initial phase. Steve has initiated a title search on all of our property in Woods Hole, as well as a site survey of the property. These are things that the architect has requested. So we've started to work on that. And there'll be plenty of opportunity for public comment and discussion as we move along. We'll be giving regular updates during as part of the authority meeting each month, as well as other meetings that will be scheduled by the architect to discuss the plans as we move forward. If you have any questions of Steve, or Steve has anything to add?
Well, actually, I think Bill has done the site survey, or Carl has with Holmes and Brown. And I think Bill has also gotten the bathymetric survey done for the water offshore. That's in the process also.
Yes, sir. Catherine Bumpus is the president of the Woods Hole Village Association in the back row.
And I'm just going to say, I appreciate that you'll be accepting public comment on this. It's always great to drive from Woods Hole to Hyannis to talk to you all about the Woods Hole Terminal. But I'm co-president of the Community Association, and we're happy to give you our input. We'd love to give input earlier in the process so that we don't end up at odds later in the process. And happy to facilitate meetings and bring the community together whenever it works for all of us.
Great, thank you for that.
And if there's any further discussion on that, I just wanted to review with the board the status of the vessel replacement study. We discussed this with the Port Council at their meeting earlier this week, and we've provided a lot of information on the current vessels, as well as a survey that was done last year, describing what the current condition of our vessels are and what the estimated useful life and functional obsolescence of each vessel. We have 9 vessels, and if you figure that with a lot of maintenance, we might be able to preserve a vessel for 50 years. We should be replacing a vessel about every 5 years or so. So we're continuing to move ahead with this. We've provided some other information that's kind of driving this whole process, the number of vehicle spaces occupied, the number of automobiles and trucks carried recently, the population totals for the islands and how they've grown. We've kind of narrowed it down to 4 replacement alternatives, and we're keying in on that, and those would be to buy a used supply vessel, to purchase a modify. So in order to get a reasonable price, it would have to be an older vessel, and we'd be replacing one of our older vessels with another old vessel. And if it's a newer vessel, then it's going to cost a lot more to acquire that and then have to modify it on top of that. We're looking at the possibility of a larger freight vessel, something in between the capacity of our current freight vessels and the capacity of the larger vessels that would be able to carry all trucks, be kind of a do everything type of carry 300 or 400 passengers. So with a full load of cars, we could accommodate all of the passengers associated with those vehicles. on early morning trips when we're trying to get the trucks over and get them back, we'd increase our capacity to be able to do that. I can envision that the vessel could be used on both routes at different times of the year, where here in the shoulder period, it could add some capacity that may be needed in the future as we get back to previous traffic levels, and on the Woods Hole Martha's Vineyard route, possibly in the summer to help out. It's going to be a replacement for the governor, so that we may not pick up a lot of capacity, but on the Vineyard route where the governor now operates. But we'll have some versatility and be able to use the vessel year-round and be able to use it on both routes. Two things that we're not able to do now with the governor. And the governor's 54, 55 years old, so we're looking at that. Also possibly replacing the governor with a full-size ferry, either similar to the Martha's Vineyard class vessel or to the Island Home class vessel. So those are the four options that we're continuing to look at. We have ruled out, eliminated the alternative of converting the Nantucket to a freight boat and removing the mezzanine decks on the Nantucket because of the age of the vessel, and then what it would cost to modify the vessels to carry pretty much all trucks. And so we think it'd be better to spend that money towards a new vessel rather than putting it into a vessel that's 40 years old.
Question? I read in the Port Council summary where the idea of leasing a vessel came to the table. And as I was thinking that through, and I'm sure that you're going to tell me that there is a reason or two or three why it doesn't make sense. I haven't hit those yet. I mean, the reason that you don't lease anything is because of the residual value at the end. There is no residual value when we get through with a boat. It's zero. We run them until they're useless and worthless. So why not lease a vessel and pay the debt service out of operating costs? You're not having to come up with $40 million. Well, what's the downside to that?
We don't know of any downside at the moment. We're still looking into that. It was a good suggestion,
Yeah.
and something that we intend to follow up on and get more information about it. I think a lot of it will depend on the residual value and how long of a lease it would be and what would happen at the end of that lease term, and all of those types of
The
questions.
residual may be plus. I mean, instead of having to pay for somebody to take it away. I mean, the lease is over 60 years down the road, or however. Well, I thought it was a pretty good idea.
That's something that we're going to definitely get back to. The part that we still have to complete is the financial information, the impacts on our debt, background information on our debt as to how the limit has increased over the years in the event that we decide to go for an increase in our bonding limit, to get an idea of where it has been historically and compared to our revenues and our debt service coverage, and how we've been able to repay principal and interest, and what we can afford, and demonstrate that we could handle additional level of debt.
Well, given that we're looking at a somewhere $30 to $40 million project in Woods Hole, and looking at a new boat, we'll be ringing bells at Christmas time for cash. So, I don't know, I think the lease thing makes some sense. We could do it at 249 feet 11 inches, and you can use it in both ports.
235.
235, 234, 234 and 11 inches.
The Woods Hole project will probably be...
Just don't put that code paint on it.
The Woods Hole project would probably be done in phases over a period of 5 years, and so we'd also be looking at money from a replacement fund that would be transferred to the replacement fund.
Still 10 million a year, and we're replacing it 4 or 5, so.
And we'd have to set the rates to
Right.
meet the cost of service and to provide for these fund transfers, so it's going to be a challenge.
Are you ready for any input on my thoughts on what we're looking at here with the boats?
I think we'd like to wait until we get
Okay.
the financial information about this, and Bob's done a lot of the information, all of it, I mean, most of it, but we've got a few more pieces to plug in.
I would suggest we look at LNG for the power plants.
The LNG.
Liquefied natural gas.
Liquefied natural gas.
Okay.
I think that's the way things are going to be going very soon,
Yeah.
given our reserves and the echo and friendliness of diesel and everything else.
Some operators in the U.S. are starting to look at that. I think Washington State Ferries is converting a couple of their larger ferries over to LNG. I believe in keeping it simple, and so with the crews that we have and the engineers, and not introducing something that might be more complicated, and so that would be in the design phase. Once we
Right.
decide what type of a vessel we're going to build, we could look into those issues as to how it should be powered with diesel fuel or LNG. It's just that there's a lot being done in Europe, but not so much in the United States yet. And how the vessels would be refueled and
Oh,
where
I understand. I'm just saying, I think it's something we need to look into.
the space, the design of the vessel, where the tanks would be located. Take up passenger space on the top decks and issues like that would come into play. But it wouldn't be in the hull any longer. They'd be up on the top.
The fuel
Top.
storage is on top deck instead of inside the hull?
Yeah, I'd like to say everything Wayne said I agree with.
Yeah.
We're looking at it. We're not going to rush into it. I've been to a couple of conferences where that's been the topic, the big topic. I've actually met with the people up in Everett about how we would get supplies of LNG down here. It'd be a tanker truck coming down to refuel our boats. And it can be done. I think we're better off waiting a little bit on this type of technology, and maybe when this boat is developed in a couple of years, it'll be there. I'm very intrigued with EMD, which EMD is what we use out here. We all know EMD. All our guys know EMDs. We know how to fix EMDs. We're doing it today. But EMD is making a dual fuel engine, which will be the same engine as we have out there, but they will inject gas into the ports of the two-stroke engine, and it'll run on gas. But if you don't have any gas, you just run on diesel. And if it needs more horsepower, it injects more diesel into the cylinder and gives you more horsepower. So it burns 3% diesel even when it's fully on LNG. But if the tanker can't get up from Everett, or the ship doesn't get in to Everett, and there's no LNG, we just keep putting diesel fuel in the boat. We keep going back and forth. It's not new technology. It's not a new engine. It doesn't have all kinds of crazy safeties all over, and tech and electronics that we have to worry about and maintain and figure out. So down the road, if we go LNG, I think right now that type of technology is what we need. The straight LNG engines, frankly, scare the hell out of me.
All right. No, but I'm just saying. it's
Both in
something to-
supply
something to
and
look into.
complexity, and even the dual fuel engines aren't as simple as the EMD design that they're working on right now that's out there. But it's different, and we have to really look at it. I think the biggest problem Wayne alluded to is the storage on the vessel.
Really?
Right now, the Coast Guard won't let you put it below the main watertight deck, which is the freight deck. So, where are we going to put these great big tanks? Put them up on the top deck with the passengers? Put them in the mezzanines? I mean, that's the reality of it. The voids are where they should go.
Yeah.
You've got big open voids on a freight boat. That's where the tanks should go. And by the time this comes around, that might be where we are. I mean, the regulatory agencies, ABS, DNV, Lloyd's, they allow them below the main watertight deck. The Coast Guard has not made that decision yet.
That's because of a danger of an explosion?
Safety is their main concern, but I think that can all be taken care of. It's also a cryogenic liquid. And there's concerns about, if that tank were to rupture, what would it do to the steel and the structure and the integrity of the hull at that point? Versus, I guess, running down on the passengers and
Lose the passengers of the boat.
So that completes my report.
Thank you for that. Next, we have our treasurer's report.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, I'd like to start with the review of the 2012 analysis of rates versus cost of service study. Hopefully everyone received their packet. The methodologies that we used this year are the same that we've used for the previous 8 years in preparing this report. And we conduct this annual review to determine the effectiveness of the authority's rate structure to cover the respective cost of service. So with that, I'd like to point out a couple key figures. On the Martha's Vineyard route, the cost of vessel operations decreased by $5,000 versus the previous year. We had a decrease in payroll and maintenance being offsetting increases in fuel and benefits. Indirect non-vessel costs increased on the Vineyard route by $747,000, or 3.7% versus the prior year, as the allocation of maintenance and administration expenses fell more heavily on the Vineyard route. Overall, the cost of service on the Vineyard route increased by $473,000, or 1.7%. The number of trips that we operated increased by 193 trips, while our capacity increased by 9,260 car equivalent spaces. Our spaces occupied increased by 6,404 spaces, or 1.1% increase. But as a result of the increased capacity, our occupancy rate of 78.2% for the year was a decrease of 0.1% versus the 78.3% that we posted in 2011. So, the estimated cost of a car equivalent unit on the Vineyard route was $49.20. In 2011, it was $49.05, so went up just slightly. On average, the automobiles covered 95% of the cost of service, with standard fare autos covering 128.9% of the cost, and excursions covering 38.6% of the cost. On average, on the Vineyard route, the trucks covered 109.1% of the cost of service. On the Nantucket route, we prepared the analysis with the allocation of indirect costs to the MVINO. The cost of vessel operations increased by $1,086,000, or 7.8%. And that was primarily due to increases in fuel expense, benefits, maintenance, and the depreciation for the improvements to the MV Eagle. Indirect non-vessel costs increased by $231,000, or 2.2%. Again, that's primarily the maintenance expense. Overall, the cost of service on the Nantucket route increased by $1,317,000, or 5.4% versus 2011. The number of trips that we provided decreased by 6 trips versus the prior year, although we had 20 more spaces being provided. Spaces occupied increased by 3,346 spaces, resulting in an occupancy rate of 78.1% for the year, and that was an increase over the 76.5% prior year. The estimated cost of a car equivalent unit for the Nantucket route was $125.89. Prior year is $119.67. On average, the automobiles covered 116.9% of the cost of service, with standard fare covering 153.1% and excursion fares covering 38.9%. On average, the trucks on the Nantucket route covered 85.1% of the cost of service. We do this analysis to have a review of how effective our rate structure is. Over time, this gives us a sense as to, if there's any need for corrections, adjustments, and whether it's affecting our overall financial, position. So, we do take this into account when we go through the budget to, if we find a need that there needs to be any adjustment. But. And in the packet, I think those numbers, the staff summary, it shows that those numbers have been fairly consistent over the years that we've been doing the study. So. Anyone has any questions?
Yes, sir.
I'll just comment, I think it's a terrific study. There isn't anything that comes glaring out of it at me. I think the occupancy at 80% is terrific. I think that the stability that we've seen over the years is pretty remarkable. I mean, not much changes from year to year in terms of percentage or dollar amount, which certainly makes our planning in every regard somewhat more consistent and better. But the analysis and the way we're looking at it, I think, is outstanding. Great job. I mean, if everything's pretty much covering their cost, and if it's not, it's got something that is, between the cost of regular fares and package deals and incentives and promotions. I think we've balanced it pretty well. So there isn't anything that I'd jump at.
Interesting that the occupancy rate is almost identical.
Mm.
And you're never going to, you get to a point where you're taking into account that there's trips that maybe 100% full going one way and 10% full going the other way. So, you start getting too
cute.
Too high. That probably means that we're not providing enough service. So.
Yeah.
Good. All right, thank you for that.
Nice job.
Now our Port Council's report.
Thank you. I always love the Port Council report, since almost everything that we've discussed, you've also discussed. But we also discussed the web design and came up with the same questions and problems. That things were going fine until the volume went up, and to me, as soon as they started testing volume-wise, the increase in volume was minimal, and the thing went down. It's my own feeling. I have some other feelings about this organization, but and again, I agree with Wayne. I don't think necessarily that we should turn around and buy bigger and bigger computers to do the job, since I think what we have right now probably is adequate. Carl also reported that O Plus would be ready. The pump out facilities seem to be all set and ready to go. And also the Palmer Ave lot was progressing very well. While we were discussing Palmer Ave, Mark Rosen noted that he was looking into an automated vehicle identification transponder that would speed up entering and exit the lots. And the other thing it would do is it would make certain that only one vehicle could use the permit. Right now, you get a permit for the vehicle and you have a card, which means you give your card to someone else and they can get their car in and out the lot. So it would make sure that the vehicle that that has the permit is the vehicle is in our lot and is using our lots. So, and I think this is it would be a good thing to do. We also, Bob Davis reviewed the analysis that he just gave you, and so on. And then we discussed at great length vessel replacement. Yes, the governor needs to be replaced, and of course, with what type of vessel. There was no general agreement. I believe almost each member had their own idea as to what should happen. And I think this is going to take some more discussion and a lot of work. And also, as Bob said, that the leasing was brought up. And again, the management is looking into that. And also, we will look in further about replacement and what type of vessel we think should be replaced. That's the report. Any questions of the Port Council?
Yes, sir.
Not necessarily of the Port Council, but you just reminded me of one more thing. I read that the double ender adds $20 million to the cost of the vessel. Was that the case with the island homes? It wasn't that much of a premium.
I think at the time we were told $1 million.
Yeah. Didn't I read that correctly? A $20 million?
Yes.
For
You
a
did.
double
I
ender?
did see that.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
I thought that was
That
wrong.
was a comment that Nat brought up. I think he just threw it out. There's no...
Well, that explains it all.
It does, actually.
No, I think actually on you had given us some figures, right?
On estimated
Estimated. And I
construction
think,
costs.
yes, the estimate cost was, I believe, like $20 million more for a double ender than a...
What happened?
I don't know what the estimate was for the Martha's Vineyard. At one point, the community wanted a double-ender boat to replace the Islander. So I don't know, and that was estimated about $33 million.
The whole boat was
The whole
30.
boat, that,
So it
right.
couldn't have been 20 million just
But
to
I
add the...
don't know what the estimated cost of another Martha's Vineyard, I don't recall what that number was at the time.
55 million or 52 million?
Well,
That's the island home.
at the
Oh,
time,
excuse me, I'm sorry.
when we built the island home, I'm not sure what the replacement cost of a Martha's Vineyard type vessel
Wow.
would have been at that time.
Okay.
Because we had already reached the point of the community wanted a double ender to replace, and we were going in that direction. So the other option wasn't available, it was available, but it wasn't being considered
That-
to
that-
reduce the turnaround in the harbor.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I don't know that that's the answer to the question. Specifically, if we were to take the island home, which at one point was not going to be a double ender, as I recall, way, way early in the discussion, and make that boat into a double ender, my impression from what I read here was that it would be a $20 million premium. And I'm not able to reconcile that, given our experiences 6 years ago with the island home.
Right now, we're estimating the island home is a bigger vessel to begin, 20 feet longer.
Right?
And our figures last year were $35 million to build a Martha's Vineyard type vessel, and $52 million to build another island home.
Okay,
That
so it's
ended
not
up
just
costing
making it a double ender that's the difference, it's the whole boat.
So there's a $17 million difference
That I
right
can
now
understand.
between the two.
But not driven by just the fact that it's a double ender.
Back in 2004, when we issued the contract for it, the estimate was like the 31, the contract, the bid came in at.
That I recall.
But I don't know what the cost of Martha's Vineyard would have been, whether it would have been 25 million, 26 million.
I think we're agreeing on 25.
Well, okay, that explains it. I mean, to take a boat that's gonna be a single end and make it a double end, it's gotta be a couple $1 million, right? Same boat.
Yeah, no, we weren't thinking about converting a single ender to a double ender.
I'm talking about building it from scratch, not
Yeah.
converting.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thanks.
So it's a bigger vessel, has larger passenger area than the Martha's Vineyard.
There I can see the 20 million.
And so it's 17 right now is the delta between those two options.
Got it.
The lift decks, the
Oh, no, I fully
fuel valve
understand all
thrusters on the
that.
boat,
Right.
you know.
That's
all
just
of
not
that.
the way I read it.
2 pilot houses.
Right. I would, am I wrong in assuming that a boat of the Island Homes design would not work on the Nantucket route?
It would work, it wouldn't work
Well.
efficiently.
Okay.
Turning the bow propeller backwards for 25 miles is probably not a good idea in the long term. 7.5 miles, because it works better in both harbors, is probably acceptable. And that's what we looked at, versus Z-drives and other things where you could actually turn the propeller around. We balance that against maintenance and initial costs and everything. But you know, there are things you could do to make a double ender work on this run. I wouldn't suggest it for that long a run, 25 miles. There's efficiency issues, there's design issues of the bow area. It's harder to make a bow that can run in heavy seas. You know, you probably went on the Island Home and it slaps a little bit in certain conditions, because we had to flatten that area out a little bit for the thrusters and different things. And if you were going to put something like a Z-drive in to be truly efficient, then you'd have that problem, because you have to flatten the bow out. And I wouldn't suggest it on a long run, but we can look at it again when we start this whole process.
I think a Z-drive with our shoaling problems and things here would not be the answer.
I agree with you.
However, I will say that a double ender would be preferred in Hyannis Harbor. I mean, this harbor, as I said earlier, is taking it on the chin when it comes to shoaling, and they're big boats coming into a small boat harbor is what it amounts to.
I didn't hear a word. Anything else on that? Thank you for your report.
Too easy.
Our next item is new/old business. Who's going to take that?
I think Steve will probably take the lead on this and to walk the members through the process.
Hopefully this is becoming more routine every year, but it's required by the open meeting law. And this is the performance evaluation of the general manager. The timing is so that Wayne's performance can be evaluated fully at the June meeting.
Steve, could you speak up for me?
The timing is so that Wayne's performance can hopefully be evaluated at the June meeting, which would then, the process would be to have Port Council conduct an evaluation at their meeting next month, and then for the board in open session to conduct their evaluation of Wayne's performance at your meeting next month as well, with whatever input you want to receive from the Port Council at that meeting. It would be conducted in public. You get to decide at that time whether you want to prepare a consolidated performance evaluation or just to have oral comments at the meeting suffice, which is, I believe, what happened last year. Or if you have any documentation, it has to be with you at the meeting. So whatever you make becomes, I believe, becomes a public record until it goes into his personnel file. The question of any salary adjustment would be left for executive session to the extent it's in the context of contract negotiations. But to the extent that a salary adjustment is being made because of his performance, that discussion also would have to take place in those sessions. So this is a process that is allowed under the open meeting law for you to decide whether you want to follow it or you have some other idea that you want to do it, but it's gotten to be more efficient over the last few years.
What we did last year was we filled these out, we handed them in to you, correct? And then we verbally discussed this, or?
Some. Well, not to me, possibly you handed them into Phil.
Oh, all right, I apologize.
Okay,
Then it was a verbal discussion.
Then it was a verbal discussion afterwards.
Seemed to work very well.
So is the question, do we wish to continue doing it this way?
we aren't aware of any other way that it can be done in the
Okay.
open meeting law.
That worked well, just use last year's.
Yeah.
What we did, improving from last year, because I think Bob Jones' suggestion, the goals were somewhat revised so that last year they implied that all of the goals had to be completed within that year, and it's now clear that now just how they're being administered. They're all ongoing goals.
Well, that's an improvement.
Yeah, last year's process was pretty good with that adjustment.
Right, yeah.
And the Port Council is going to be doing this in our next
Correct.
meeting.
After next
So we have to send everybody,
Everyone has, you have the
Yeah.
form already. so-
yes, but I'll have to email them all to make sure that they understand what they're supposed to do. Yes.
Very good.
And I believe what we did is we discussed it, and then we gave you a synopsis, I believe, of what the Port Council said.
That's right.
Is that what we did?
That's right.
Yes, yeah,
And I think you were in charge of that.
yes,
Okay.
I believe I was.
Congratulations.
Again.
Sounds like you got it again.
I mean, so it does sound like that, doesn't it? Yes.
So the authority members is to do this and get them fulfilled, is that what I understand?
You do not have to if you don't want to.
You don't have to get anything to me. You can just discuss it verbally. if you'd
Yeah.
like it to me.
I don't think we passed it last year.
I think it may have been the year before you passed it.
Oh,
You may not have done
Yeah,
that.
I don't think we did last
I
year.
know we had
I
last year.
I think I got 1 or 2 last year.
It only requires for a public discussion.
Good.
We're not voting on this, right? Or are we?
You could vote to adopt it, or if there's
So moved.
consensus, you don't have to.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor? Opposed, hearing none, we've adopted that. Any public comment? Hearing none, I have a brief statement to read.
That is short.
How'd you get away with that? Thanks, Steve.
I'm sorry. You've taken care of all the complicated matters.
I've got 2 pages.
We just like to hear you talk, that's what it was.
Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss the deployment of security personnel and devices and strategies with respect thereto, as well as the authority's strategy with respect to collective bargaining matters, including the authority's negotiations with the Independent Steamship Authority Workers Union regarding the authority's unlicensed vessel employees, and the authority's negotiations with the licensed officers and maritime workers union regarding the authority's licensed deck officers, because a public discussion of those matters may have a detrimental effect on the authority's bargaining and litigating positions. The public disclosure of any more information with respect to these subjects would compromise the purpose for which the executive session is being called. After the conclusion of the executive session, we will not reconvene in public. May I have a motion to this effect?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. We're going to take a roll call vote. Mr. O'Brien?
Aye.
Mr. Hanover?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Tierney?
Yes, aye.
And the chair also votes aye. We are adjourned into executive session.